In a chip fab, there's a zone every engineer is trained to ignore. A thin gap between chips, the mechanical trim where the diamond saw cuts. For 60 years, nobody put anything functional there, but one company did. It builds the largest chip ever made. OpenAI committed more than $20 billion to use it. And right now, that company is going public. GPUs scale out, Cerebras scales in. Scaling out gives flexibility. Scaling in gives efficiency. And inference is forcing a trade-off between the two. That trade-off is worth billions. Here's the honest version of the story. I spent close to half a decade inside the world's most advanced semiconductor company, the one that manufactures this chip. That background is why I can show you things about this IPO that nobody in financial media can. Here is exactly what this video covers. Number 1, what this chip is and why building it broke a 60-year manufacturing rule. Number 2, 3 specific trade-offs that nobody has reported. 3, where the performance advantage is real and exactly where it stops. 4, the honest investment case. Let's go. Every chip is made by printing circuits onto a silicon wafer. The machine stamps a pattern, moves, stamps again, one area at a time. Each stamp has a size limit, about 800 square millimeters. This is called a reticle limit, a constraint of an optical system. Exceed it, and you lose the precision that makes the transistor work. This is why every chip you have ever used is roughly the size of postage stamp. Your phone processor, an NVIDIA GPU, every chip since the 1960s. Cerebras built a chip that covers an entire 300mm wafer, 46,000 square millimeters, 56 times larger than NVIDIA's biggest GPU. 4 trillion transistors, 900,000 AI cores, 44 gigabytes on-chip memory bandwidth of 21 petabytes per second. Now to make that number real, 21 petabytes per second is roughly equivalent to entire traffic of the global internet moving through one chip every second, 100 times over. Why that number matters and why it's more complicated than it sounds. We'll see that in coming chapters. But first, the manufacturing story. This is where it gets interesting. In any chip fab, scribe lines serve 2 purposes. 1, mechanical. The diamond saw cuts through them after fabrication. 2, and this is what most people miss. They carry test structures called process control monitors, small circuits. Engineers measure them constantly. If the reading drift, engineers catch it before hundreds of wafers are affected. These monitors are the nervous system of manufacturing quality. They are how TSMC keeps its process honest. Cerebras asked TSMC to clear portions of those zones, remove the monitors, run copper signal wires through that space instead, connecting chip areas together so the software sees one continuous processor. This single massive chip is known as wafer scale engine, WSE. Unlike traditional processors that are cut into small individual squares from silicon wafer, the WSE uses entire wafer as one giant interconnected processor. The WSE3 is the third and most current generation of Cerebras Systems' giant AI processor. TSMC agreed, but here's the part no financial analysis has captured. When you remove the scribe line monitors, you slow down your feedback loop. Process drift that would normally caught early may not surface until most wafers have run. To compensate, TSMC must dedicate transistor area inside the product die itself to additional test circuits, area that could otherwise be AI compute cores. You can think of this as a metrology tax, a structural ongoing cost premium. It is invisible in S-1, but paid on every single wafer. In simple words, they gave up visibility to gain connectivity. And that trade-off has price baked quietly into unit economics. That negotiation and years of co-engineering that followed is a real invention, not just a big chip. Now let's go to technical version. Each wafer scale engine core is 1% the size of an H100 compute core. A defect disables a tiny area. The wafer scale engine ships roughly 93% of its silicon active. That is real, and it is only half the story. The financial version of this is nobody's telling. When an NVIDIA wafer has defects, it gets binned. Defective sections disabled. The chip becomes a lower tier product and steals the revenue. NVIDIA does this constantly. Defective silicon still generates cash. A defective WSE3 wafer cannot be binned into smaller Cerebras chip. There is no smaller product. The wafer either ships as complete system or it has to be thrown away. A $2.5 million asset becomes scrap. The S-1 does not disclose this defective wafer write-off rates. At low volume, this is manageable. At the 100 of systems OpenAI's deals require, this binary write-off model becomes the first-order cost structure question. I think this question every investor should ask them, and that answer is not there in the filing. There is a failure mode in this product that does not exist anywhere else in semiconductor industry. The wafer scale engine is spatially compiled. Before the chip runs anything, the model's layers are physically mapped to fixed regions of the wafer. Layer 1 goes here, layer 2 goes there, layer 50 goes there, fixed at the compile time. Different model layers have different compute intensities. Compute-heavy layers generate more heat in specific physical zones. Those zones expand more than cooler zones. The spring pin connectors underneath those zones absorb more mechanical stress on every single run. Because the spatial mapping is fixed, it is always the same physical regions under the most load. With GPUs, compute is allocated dynamically at runtime. No task is permanently fixed to the physical location. This is where software design decisions start to show up as physical failure modes. For a production fleet running thousands of hours on the same model, which is exactly what OpenAI's deployment looked like. Now this is a question I would want answered before signing any hardware contract. This is not addressed specifically in the S1. Now let's look at the both sides of performance story. AI has shifted. For years, progress meant training bigger models. NVIDIA built its empire there. NVIDIA still dominates the training, but that is not where Cerebras is competing. The new battleground is inference. Every word a model generates requires pulling model weights from memory into compute. At lower batch, a GPU spends significant time waiting for the data to arrive from its external memory. The wafer scale engine has memory woven directly into the wafer, micrometers from every compute core. For models that fit on-chip, that waiting is largely eliminated. On Llama 4 Maverick, Cerebras achieves approximately 2,500 tokens per second per user. NVIDIA's Blackwell DGX achieves around 1,000. That gap is independently measured. That is real on their specific workload, but here's where it stops. Cerebras is optimizing for latency per user. NVIDIA is optimizing for utilization across users. Those are not the same problem. NVIDIA wins at high batch. NVIDIA wins on training. And NVIDIA wins on the thing that determines most enterprise decisions: ecosystem. CUDA has 15 years of libraries, tooling, and developers know it inside out. It is not a product, it's a software civilization. This kind of analysis, where engineering, finance, and real industry context all meet. If this is what you're looking for, this is exactly what I cover over here. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's come to the next point. $510 million in 2025 from $24 million 3 years ago, up 76% year on year. That growth is real. The profit number requires careful reading. GAAP net income shows $237 million. A substantial portion came from one-time non-cash accounting gain, specifically from restructuring a commercial agreement with G42. Strip that out and the operating losses widen year on year. Non-GAAP net loss, $75 million. This is a cash-burning company. Know which number you are reading before you form a view on profitability. 86% of 2025 revenue came from two UAE-linked entities, G42 and MBZ UAE. The CFI US review cleared G42's equity position. It did not touch commercial revenue dependency. This is not diversification. It is one concentrated dependency being replaced by another. And US export control policy on AI compute to the Gulf regions remain live and evolving risk. The January 2026 agreement commits more than $20 billion of compute capacity over multiple years. 750 megawatts. OpenAI provided $1 billion working capital loan. They hold warrants for up to 10% of Cerebras equity. This is not a purchase order. Revenue is recognized as compute delivered over years. The S1 reports $24.6 billion in contracted but unbooked obligations. 42% of that is due after 2029. So OpenAI is not writing this commitment because they believe in Cerebras architecture. They are writing it because NVIDIA charges what the market will bear and OpenAI's margins are being consumed by hardware cost. This deal is anti-NVIDIA insurance policy. Cerebras needs to execute and OpenAI should not find something better in meantime. Now let's see it from the physics point of view. Cerebras has a real benchmark speed advantage on large model, low batch, latency sensitive inference. The architecture is genuinely hard to replicate quickly. The inference market is growing as deployed AI scales. The OpenAI deal provides contracted revenue visibility, even if backloaded. And the closest architectural rival Grok is now inside NVIDIA rather than competing independently. Cerebras is the only pure-play inference chip company going public. On total cost of ownership, one CS3 at roughly $2.5 million delivers the inference throughput of approximately 2.5 Blackwell DGX systems at $3 million each. Hardware near parity before power, before networking, before operational complexity. Now let's come to the financial case. The valuation target is approximately $35 billion on revenue of $510 million in 2025, roughly 69 times. NVIDIA trades at roughly 25 times. So for this multiple to work, three things must be simultaneously true. 1. OpenAI delivers on full contracted backlog without triggering contingency clauses. 2. The inference market stays memory bandwidth limited, even as the quantization and long context pull in opposite directions. 3. NVIDIA's Grok integration does not close the performance gap before Cerebras ships the next generation. All three at the same time. In a field where NVIDIA ships a new architecture every 12 to 18 months, if even one breaks, the valuation compresses. And if two break, the equity story changes entirely. And at this point, there is no disclosed WSE4 roadmap. The software porting cost is real, the hardware lock-in is real, the upgrade cycle advantage is real, and the TSMC dependency is essential. The WSE3 cannot move to Samsung, cannot move to Intel. If TSMC deprioritizes this process line, Cerebras has zero manufacturing fallback. Now my honest assessment, the engineering is real, the inference speed advantage is real on the workloads it was designed for. The three manufacturing trade-offs I described are the real risks that are not properly quantified in any existing coverage. Here is the line I want you to take from this video. In semiconductor history, the best technology and the best investment are two separate questions. Companies with genuine technical advantages have still made terrible IPO entry points. The technology does not expire. The valuation premium can. Watch the first earnings call after the IPO. That is when OpenAI's revenue recognition becomes real data for the first time. That call will tell you whether 24.6 billion in contracted obligations is converting to cash or sitting as optimism on the balance sheet. This might be the future of AI hardware. The market is pricing it like future is already certain. And in this industry, certainty is usually where the risk is hiding. I make these videos because I see that there's a real gap between what happens inside the industry and what most people see. If this video gave you any value, please like and subscribe. It takes few seconds. It genuinely helps me to understand what you want more of. Thank you.